But to begin, we are just thrilled, Tarehna Wicker joining us from Portland Public Schools. Thank you for sharing what you're up to and the problems you're trying to solve and your approach. So we'll just turn it over to you, Tarehna.
All right. So yeah, hi, I'm Tarehna Wicker. I am Program Associate in the Humanities Department at Portland Public Schools, and I'm actually the sort of project manager for Atlas and PPS. Pardon me while I'm sharing my screen. So we have about 4,000 teachers and about 80,000 students in Portland Public Schools, and we knew that a one-size-fits-all was not going to work out for us. So we sort of planned to have 4 possibilities of teaching and learning happening in distance learning. So one was analog, students that aren't going to be able to connect via devices for a variety of reasons. And we're taking steps to get devices into hands of kids, but we know there's still going to be some that are going to need analog resources. So we created packets and worksheets and used old curriculum material to hand out through our nutritional hubs where we're feeding kids every day. So they have access to materials that are analog, and those are all created by folks in the central office. The second and third are that central office started working to create specific distance learning activities that were aligned but scaled back from our existing scope and sequence for standards that either would push directly to students. So we have a web page in Portland Public Schools that goes straight to students, or that teachers could access through Atlas and just put into their own platforms. We're using Seesaw and Google Classroom primarily to reach kids right now. And then the last thing that we have, because there are so many teachers and so many different schools and communities, is independently created. There are a number of teachers who are just going to keep doing what they were doing and probably won't use centrally created resources. They'll just plug away and adapt. So thinking about how we could support those folks just through some of the other tools. But we decided pretty early on that everything that we were going to create through the central office would live in Atlas, and we made some structural changes to our units. So I'm going to go into this unit here, which is a 4th grade reading and writing unit. And you can see that what we did is I had a text about 7 o'clock at night, sometime in early March. It was like, we should make a distance learning box. My boss was like, let's make a box for distance learning resources. So we did that really early on to make sure that we were going to be ready. And then the mandate has changed a few times, but what we ultimately ended up doing was creating resources that teachers could link that were like a very, very simple basic lesson plan that was also something that parents could do. So we tied it to standards, but we actually left the standards out of the conversation and instead talked about the skills that students were working on, created some example lessons in Seesaw, and then developed some really basic weekly routines that either teachers or families could sort of adopt. So this is an ELA unit for informational reading and writing. We have a little disclaimer that says, this is to support you, you're going to make digital copies of whatever you need, and that there's a lot of different ways that students are accessing, and it's the teacher's responsibility to sort of differentiate and work best for their community with the work that we have. And then as you scroll down, in this unit, students are working on some real basic academic goals: reading, watching, and listening to nonfiction, asking and answering questions, and so on. And then weekly routines for the first 4 weeks. We had originally thought we were in for 4 weeks of distance learning. We have just learned that we're in for another 5. We're out till the end of the school year, so we'll be working on the next unit of learning right now so that that's ready to go for teachers with a little more time than we had this. And then finally at the bottom, some digital resources for students that either are free for everybody or that we have access to through our existing subscriptions. And then below that is our sort of original units, but we wanted to put this all up top so that it was easy for teachers to find. We were in a long road to full adoption in Atlas that became very rapidly a 2-week onboarding for all teachers into Atlas. So we wanted to make this very simple, very easy, and very useful for teachers.
Fabulous. Tarehna, what are some of the questions you've had as people have been adapting to this?
So there was a lot of conversation early on because we were uneven in our adoption. So it was like, why are we using this? You know, what is the point of this was sort of the early thing because so many people were new to it. But my like tech support curve for bringing people into Atlas went from an email every 2 or 3 minutes to now 2 or 3 emails a day, as people have found it pretty easy to use. So the questions really have just been, there were some initial concerns about doing standard-based instruction right away. But then I think as people have pulled on and looked at the models, that also has kind of cleared up because it's very basic. It's very limited and people are able to take on and build whatever they want out of that, or just literally copy and paste like the seesaw lessons that we've built for them.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Yeah. And then real quick, one other thing that actually Chris Guthrie suggested to me and we are going to start doing is tracking the standards, because we are scaling back on the number of standards that we're focusing on as we move into this distance. It's just impossible to do the same amount of things. So we created a standard tag called 2020 distance impacted so that we can track all of the standards that we deprioritized for this learning period. And then as we're looking into fall and what that looks like, we'll have a better picture of what we need to add to our fall to kind of help build that support and try to catch folks up.
Awesome.
That's
Perfect.
great.